Hello, everyone. I'm Coach Debb. Welcome to I'm Not Okay Why. And I'm Not Okay Why? Well, it's lack of transparency in the Black community and also family secrets. There have been in the past where, there have been things in our community where, for instance, let's just say that you are raised with an aunt you thought was your aunt, but end up being your sister, or you was raised to think someone was your dad when it was your uncle. It's like these are things that I believe that is really, really prevalent in our community, and we need to talk about it. Let me just take care of a few things. Please follow us on all social media podcasts, IG, and also Facebook. I'm Not Okay Why. We have a TV show coming your way real soon. You need to download the Roku device. And of course, you want to also join into the GEI network and make it one of your favorite, programs that you look at. We also have a podcast. A podcast is Reveal and Heal. It comes live each Monday at 6 a.m. Motivation Monday. Reveal and Heal. You can heal if you won't reveal. You can follow us on our podcasts. On all social media outlets for that one as well. Listen, y'all, I'm Not Okay Why radio show. It's on and popping, raw and uncut conversation. We have 5 to 10 panelists. We all come together and we talk about the issues that we're not okay with in our community. Download a reallyrealradio.com app so that you won't miss the radio show that comes your way every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. Y'all, let's get it popping. I'm excited about this subject, which is family secrets and lack of transparency in the Black community, in the Black neighborhood, amongst the Black families. So let's talk about it. I have with me today our guest, of course, is Latreace Graham. Also have my panelists, Dr. Margaret Conley, and my panelist, Dr. LaDonna Butler. We have Pastor Larry King. He will soon join us. And also Dr. Holly, he will soon join us. But we're going to go ahead and move forward and talk about this very subject that we kind of run away from in our community. So go ahead and, reach out to your friends, let them know that we are on reallyrealradio.com. And we're talking about, something that's very important in our community. I want to start with you, Dr. Margaret Conley, about this subject here. Oftentimes, as I was stating, with intro, oftentimes, we grow up with different family members. Everybody's a cousin. Everybody's an uncle and an auntie. Everybody is a sister or a brother because we are a community, right? And we just claim everybody. And we don't always know who is who. It's like it don't matter. You got a different mama, different daddy. You got grandmama is everybody's grandmama in the neighborhood. It's that village component. So how important is it, for transparency in our community? Because we married our cousins.
Right. Yeah, that part.
Come on now.
That part is true. I know. I mean, I'm from Cartersville, so that part has happened. We watched that happen in our communities because people didn't explain. But I know from my family, we had a family secret, and luckily it was a cousin, actually the sister of the individual who was adopted, because they stayed in the family, right? So she told him, we were sitting there and it was a shocker. I'm thankful, and I think he's thankful to this day too, that she told him at such an early age. It was before we were even teenagers that he found out that his mother was actually who he had known his whole life to be a first cousin. And so his great aunt adopted him. And our family was really upset that his sister told him. On the other hand, because he knew as an adult, he was able to help, or he has been able to help take care of his actual mother because she had a stroke. So he was able to help his sisters take care of his mother while taking care of his adopted mother, who is his great aunt. So, those family secrets can take you out. I'm grateful that my cousin decided to tell us that day what the truth was. And though everybody was upset with her, she was upset that he appeared at the time to have like special privilege because he looked like he had two moms. So the other thing is, even about her, she has some mental issues and some intellectual disabilities. And so growing up, she was to be treated like everyone else. She was not to be treated different, which later on might have caused some effect in the fact that if you told her she was different, she was offended in some cases, because instead of acknowledging the difference, it was she's special, or not to even speak to it. So we didn't acknowledge some of the difference, which again carried through to even one of her children. And so as we grew up and we understood, in my generation of my family, acknowledge the difference. Some things like mental illness, some things like keeping a secret about if someone's adopted or not, can really play a part into their adulthood.
Yes, it can.
They need to absolutely know these secrets, because what does that look like in carrying on in bloodline? What does it look like for my health, my mental health? What does it look like for just me in the community, especially in a small community? What does it look like if I do marry my cousin and I didn't know it, because I didn't realize I was adopted? I didn't realize that was the case. So family secrets are really big. My family has had a shared secrets, but we are pretty much transparent with one another in my immediate family, like because of all the weight that the secrets carry. We've decided to be pretty much transparent. So that is not that's not the average Black family, because what happens in our house stays in our house.
Oh boy.
And so that's what's supposed to happen, but we carry the weight of that, and in carrying the weight of that, it also wears out on our minds, our bodies, and then it puts us in a space of, I want to say, disassociation with some of the truth. Like we want to act like that just didn't even happen, to the point that the lie has become so big. I call it what it is. That it's like that didn't happen. When actually it's noted, it's there, and we need to speak to it so that it doesn't continue to pass on to the next generation.
I think that we're going to get to in this conversation. I'm motivated. We're going to get to it. We're going to talk about the motivations for the secrecy in the families, and we're going to also talk about the consequences, because that is huge. I want to also, talk about what, the consequences of distrust and anger, the children and learning problems and, somatic symptoms. The body speaks. I've been reading about that. So Dr. Conley, some of the secrets that, let me just back it up because I'm excited. Let me back it up. We get like profile type questionnaires when we go to the doctor, right? It can be, a checkup, for whatever the case may be. They always want to know the family history, right? And it's like some things we don't know, because I know growing up, I used to hear a lot of times, you do what I say do, not as I do. And also speak when you're spoken to. It's like in my era, because I'm 56, we could not ask questions. There was no real communication line between the adult and the child. We just had to do what we were told. Versus, compared to the way things are today, which me raising my children, I thank God my kids taught me how to understand them by, reminding me, Mama, I have a voice. And to me, when I was growing up, that was like disrespect. But having children, it taught me a great deal. How important is it that we know mental disorders, addictions, wellness and personal development, life issues in the family, treatment, treatments and intervention, credit, scores, health problems,
I think the credit score bigger than all the ones you said.
Come on. Listen, how important is it for us to know all this stuff? If we got people in our lineage that are business people, that are activists, for us, and we need to know some stuff. How important is it for us to know what's going on in the lineage?
It's vital. I went to predominantly white school for undergrad, and I watched as Black children struggle. Like we were hustling for money and just trying to pay tuition or taking out loan after loan after loan. We didn't understand. So refund check was like, oh, this is how we living. people buying cars on their refund check, like it's their tax check, you know what I mean? Like it's a tax refund, not realizing we got to pay that stuff back. And I also watched my white counterparts do the same thing. And then they was filing bankruptcy at 20. And I'm like, who files bankruptcy at 20? That's crazy. Well, that was a secret in the white community in rural Georgia. You know, you spend, go, file bankruptcy. So by the time you're 28, like it was a crazy thing. By the time you're 28, your credit is at the beginning again. So you party through your school years. Well, I had two brothers that decided to follow after some of these white guys, and they did it. And I'm watching them now at 40, like they own properties. They do mass media all over Atlanta, but it's because they listened to those guys. And we told them they were crazy. They did, but it's because they knew their lineage of having bad credit. These two guys were brothers. One of them, I know they partner in Atlanta. I think one of them actually lives out of state now, but they're brothers. But they own so much stuff. They own so much stuff because they listened, but they knew their family history of credit, bad health, all of that. And they asked those guys, what's the secret? Because they realized what they were doing. And they told them the secret. So by the time they were 30 and 31 years old, they owned so much property. I think they probably made their first million by the time they were 35 because it made sense to them. So I said that to say it is important. We don't have to follow that and cheat. We can actually teach our children from the beginning. I'm watching both of these brothers teach their children good credit habits, good health habits, good habits at the beginning. Both of them have children. Both of those children, I think they're like 9 or 10, but both of those kids now have started their own mini businesses. So they're knowing how to do that. They learn how to be entrepreneurs early. They're also taking good care of their health. They're on social media showing off like what my kid is doing, not to brag on if they're going to make it into the NFL, but to brag on my kid has good health. My kid has good credit. And I'm watching, like, it's a couple in Cartersville that's doing it with their children. They brag on their children's credit score. They brag on their health. They show pictures and everything about what they're doing with their kids so that they don't look like them when we were their age, struggling, trying to make it, trying to go from apartment to apartment, hopping from house to house, bankruptcy, watching how their children are starting out in a good way because they are beginning to set up a generational blessing versus continue in that pattern, that disruptive pattern of that intergenerational trauma, sitting in what we may call a generational curse, or thinking that this is how patterns are supposed to go. I call it generational project. So when I worked for Family and Children Services in the state of Georgia, I had a couple of families in the Metro Atlanta area that would be angry about losing their project. One of them, one of the ladies, she explained it to me. She's like, my great grandmother lived here, my grandmother lives here, and so this is going to be my project. I had to explain to her that's not how it works. So when Atlanta in the early 2000s went through that mass transformation of transforming public housing into consolidated apartments and gentrification and revitalizing the hood, these people didn't know what to do with $25,000 because that's what they gave them. They blew it because that looks like what a refund check looks like. Oh, we can have a good time, because they didn't know how to take care of budget, money, and health. So they didn't have insurance. They didn't have housing. And because of that, they started to lose. So it's really important that we start to explain to our children, or this generation is here, what it looks like to maintain your health, what it looks like to maintain your credit, what it looks like to maintain healthy relationships with positive spaces, what it looks like to maintain your grades. Like, education isn't for everyone, but to maintain your academics, that doesn't just mean making A's and B's. Like, what does your report card say when it comes down to your behavior? What does it look like to connect with teachers that can take you to your next level, even if you don't want to go to college? So my cousin, the same guy I was talking about, he wanted to go to college, but he wanted to go to tech school because he really was invested in revitalizing cars and trucks and building engines. And so instead of going to college, which he's very capable, he followed his passion. He makes way more money than I do now driving a truck, but he can also rebuild any engine you want him to do. He revitalizes cars and he has a degree in it. So what does it look like to connect? He connected with the right person that got him into the right school so that he could be the top of his game. So what does it look like to connect and teaching our children and teaching those in community how we connect for health, for growth, versus just trying to stay in a knit secret community of Black care that may not be healthy or as healthy as we need it to be, because it may need to heal.
Right. Oh, wow, that's good. Wow. Okay. Dr. Butler, can you share with the listeners the importance of knowing, family history before you choose your mate, before you say yes to the person that you're dating or potentially marry? I tend to believe that if there is history of abuse, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sexual abuse, all types of abuse, it played a role in your decision making, in your choices, because of, hidden trauma or underlying issues that have not been dealt with. And even for you to end up, in that space, I tend to believe also that when a mom is pregnant with that child, if that mom has some issues that have not been dealt with, like, nervousness, anxiety and things of such, it can affect the child. How important is it for the conversation to be had for the parent, the grandparent, the uncle, the aunt, the influential people in the family, to share whatever has happened in the family that's taken a toll on the child, the woman, the man that you become, to make those choices? How important is that?
I think it's so important that we know our history and that we understand ourselves and the people that we're connected to. As we talk about transparency and family secrets, it's important to know why some of the secrets exist and how they serve as a measure of protection for oneself, our family, and our community, and how those secrets can sometimes be disruptive later on in life, just like you're talking about, like when we're making decisions about our partnership or any other relationship that we're going to be in. If there are places in our lives that have not been explored, if we've not understood the best pieces of us, as well as some of the moments or trauma that has been transferred over the generations, it can have some negative impact. So the short answer, it's important to slow down and get to know any person that you're going to be in a relationship with, whether a partnership, whether a business relationship, whether a romantic relationship, a parental relationship. It is important that we're having courageous conversations about the full truth of ourselves. You named it, that in our community, we have not had the most open and direct conversations about our own mental health. Well, we've not always had the opportunity or the information in order to really understand how it all connects. So I believe one of the first steps is to slow down first and be reflective about our own experiences. Slow down and think about how your life has gone, the things that have been extremely good that you want to transmit to the next generation, as well as the next person who's sitting next to you, as well as some of the traumas that we've experienced individually as well as collectively. That is one of the first strategies if we're going to really break the cycle of harm in our families and in our community. The second thing is really doing our own research. People can only share with us what they know. And so sometimes it requires us to reach out to others to ask about family history, to maybe do our own ancestry so we can do that bigger and deeper research so that we can really understand the brilliance of ourselves, as well as some of the hurt that we've experienced together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want to add to what I asked of you. I want to share something though, and I want to know if you agree. because I find that one of the most toxic problems confronting many families is the existence of secrets that actually prevent open communication and ultimately lead to serious health and mental problems for family members. Also, in the end, I believe that some families are unable to maintain their cohesiveness because of family secrets. Do you believe that?
I believe that we're only sick.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I believe that we're only sick as our deepest secrets. I believe that when we are safe, when we are secure, and when we are in relationship with people who have earned the right to hear our stories, that is when we can share our lives with them, our stories with them. I also know that sometimes people hold on to things because they've tried out trust with people who have not had the capacity to really hold it. And so, again, we're going to talk later on about why some secrets exist. But for right now, I will share in response to what you say, our secrets do keep us sick, but it's important that we have safe people who have demonstrated over time their capacity to hold us in a safe and secure way so that we can really have a place to explore our most, deepest sense of humanity. We're not perfect, but we need perfect relationships that can withstand struggle if we're going to do life together.
Okay. Now, this is for both of y'all. Y'all just, I know that you're going to find this to be true because, see, the fact remains that, there are impacts, these family secrets. They do impact marriages. They do impact children and kinsmen relationships. And, they affect relationships and the types of problems that emerge as a result of the secrecy. So I want both of you to answer differently. Is it important to stress that in most cases, sometimes it's better not to reveal a secret, simply because it could cause undue or unnecessary damage with no benefit? I want both of y'all to answer that. Dr. Margaret?
I think Dr. Butler said it best. You always call me Dr. Margaret. I always want to clarify it as well. LCSW, just in case somebody's listening, they were going to check my credentials. But
no, she's my doctor.
Back to that. But I think Dr. Butler is correct, having those safe spaces. So we have to have a safe space. I do not believe that it's healthy to hold on to a secret by yourself. I think that is dangerous. And I'll say that it's dangerous just based upon, what I believe, so if somebody is sick, is what it says in James, somebody's sick, then you need to go to the elders form. But it also says confess your oughts one to another. So if there's, and that one to another is that safe space. So to hold it just in your body is going to keep the score of that secret. Your family body, again, will keep the score of that secret. It used to be in the Black church. It was a safe space to go to your pastor.
Come on now.
It used to be. That was the safest space to go because your pastor was going to hold that. Well, come to find out, we realized that our pastors were human as well. And so how did they manage holding all of that stuff? They started to do things that were risky. They started to do things that caused pain. They started to do things that released all of that ill because they're holding on to all of that toxicity. So I do not think that it's healthy for you to hold it because you'll start to find where things are happening to your body. Recently, I had something that I was holding and I literally got sick. I literally pulled my heart muscle last week. And so I didn't even think that was a thing to pull your cardiac muscle. How do you do that? I thought I was having a heart attack.
Never heard of it.
But it was because I had stacked on so much stress. It's because I did not express something that was going on personally in my life. And so because of that, I'm holding. And not only that, but as a therapist, I'm holding other people's stress. So at this point, my body couldn't take it. And my body said, okay, if you don't want to release it, then I'll help you release it. And I had a shutdown. So again, we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to have those trusted spaces to be able to release. So I'm always encourage people, if you can't trust people in your community, you can't trust your family, please get you a therapist. I'm a therapist with a therapist. So even my therapist fussed at me and was like, you pay me to tell me that stuff. So seeking out, getting back into my regimen of counseling and things like that, because we're holding that weight. And so for clergy, for people who are leaders in community, and even for people who, you're the lockbox for your family, I would recommend not just holding that, because you have your own stuff that you have to deal with, your own things. And it's also a matter of creating a healthy boundary and create in that healthy space. What does it look like for someone to be able to hold or be your lockbox? What does it look like for someone to be able to hold your secret with you? Because we are not to walk alone. I think the word in Amos goes far beyond just that agreement that we assume that it is, but we have to be able to walk together. And how can you walk together unless you agree? How can you walk together unless you know to hold my stuff and not spread my business and put it out? And if you don't trust the person that you're walking with, or they show you that they're not trustworthy, then that's when a boundary needs to happen. And it could be that it needs to break. You may not need to have a relationship with that person at all, but at the end of the day, you should never hold on to something by yourself and think that it's manageable, because at the end, it's going to erupt and it's going to be dangerous. Even Jesus didn't hold on to stuff by himself. I mean, he walked with 12. He translated and talked to 3 elders. You know what I'm saying? So Jesus too had to release. And even the invite on the cross was, mother behold your son and son behold your brother. In other words, we need each other.
Yes, we do.
You need everybody, but you do need someone that you can trust with you.
That's good stuff right there. Dr. Butler, what is your perspective on the importance, to stress, on the importance of, for some, maybe it's better not to reveal a secret. Could you just elaborate and share your perspective on that as well?
I believe what's said has been said. I want to say that people have a right to have their stories held safely and securely. I want to echo that we understand that it is important not to walk life alone. It's important that we're not holding information that could be dangerous for ourselves or others. And it's also important for us to be able to be in relationship with someone who has the capacity to hold your story and understand what to do with it. And someone who can hold your story and understands what to do with it. I think if we were to go back to why secrets exist, they're normally rooted out of some type of protection. People are holding it because of shame. They're holding it because of guilt. They're holding it because of expectations, some explicit, some implicit. And so it's important that if we are going to really have the conversation about transparency, so we have to understand why those secrets exist in the first place. So as a culture, as we begin to walk in love and acceptance and safety with each other, as we are more honest about where we are in life, as we're honest about our expectations for relationship, I think that people will find themselves in a situation where they feel like they can trust you. What I'm taking out of this conversation is this: secrets exist because people want to feel safe. The only way we're going to break the secret is to be a safe community by being a safe individual. And if we can't be, that we have the courage enough to say in the beginning what our limits are, so that people can make a decision for what they want to hold for themselves and what they would like to offer to the world.
You kind of pushed us. We were right at the edge of moving toward the motivations for secrecy in families. So you're hitting it on the head. You're hitting it on the head. It's like you just kind of transitioned us, because shame is a powerful motive for keeping secrets, a powerful motive. So let's just talk about one of those shamefulness pieces, and we can start with divorce. Okay. For instance, when you are the victim of divorce, not the woman, not the man, but the child. If there's a child involved, most times the children are the ones that carry the weight of the divorce. They can be bullied by other children. They can carry the weight of the shame from the parent, you know, if they have a mom that tells them everything, you know, all bad about the dad, that the dad is that parent to tell them everything, all bad about the mom. It's like the child is in a place of confusion, right? And see, already I believe that if the divorce was based off of something horrendous such as abuse, domestic violence, or things of such, being someone that is an overcomer of abuse, that's in the lineage. I never seen my dad hit my mom, but he was a strong man. He was a dominant man, and he had abusive nature. He was militant, and he led the home. You know what I'm saying? And his words were strong. I was afraid of my dad. So it's like any form of abuse could be your choice when you grow older, when it comes to dating or anything of such. Shame, being a powerful motive for keeping secrets, can go all the way back to being molested, being raped, you know, or seeing something that you wish you hadn't never seen. It's like all these things need to be communicated. All these things need to be talked about. And then you have children, and you kept this secret on the inside. And this secret has been the very push to all your decisions and all your choices. And it continues to. And it creates something in your seed, your child. Now, with that being said, where do we start? Where do we start with the communication? Being that shame is a powerful motive to keep a secret, how do we break that? Because we can't go back and blame Big Mama, you know, and blame Mama, because we've suffered because of the secrets, choices that we've made to end up where we are today. How do we start today, Dr. Margaret, my girl?
So I'm a product of everything you just said. So I grew up in an abusive home, which led to me being shameful. My parents divorced at 20, but the abuse happened between the ages of 6 to 17. So I watched that. I was not fortunate enough not to see my father abused. He abused me and my mother. But he also, again, as Dr. Butler said earlier, it wasn't researched before my mother married him, and he hadn't researched enough about himself to see what he was carrying from childhood, from experiencing war, as he's a Vietnam veteran, to experiencing 2 divorces prior to even marrying my mother and the effects that it had on him. And my mother had experienced divorce prior to marrying him, and I'm the product of that marriage. And so all of that weight sat with me even through adulthood. And so as I said, in that space, like my adulthood was messed up. It was everywhere. I didn't realize until about 10 years ago that I was the product of this stuff, and it kept going. So now that I've experienced divorce myself, I'm almost thankful I don't have children, but if I did have children, I would explain to them that life doesn't have to look like this. This isn't something that's going to keep being generational. It could stop. But I would also explain how the effects of my parents' behavior and their unhealthy mental state affected how I went through life as well. So with that being said, I've also made bad choices and not been able to keep up, and shame hit versus sitting in the guilt or the weight of which way I should go, because guilt is neutral in my opinion. Guilt is going to help you wait. It's like justice scales. But it moved from guilt to blame. I spent years blaming my mother and my father for not stepping up, right? But you can't sit in that too long. And then it turns into shame, and it turns into I'm unlovable. I don't care. I'm not lovable. I don't care about myself. I don't care about my relationships. I'm unable to do. So then I'm just going to overdo for others. I'm going to overproduce. This is all states of trauma that are coming through this shame. And so the first thing I want to say, you know, which has been stated already tonight, is that it's systematic. And there's a science to this healing. It isn't just something that just automatically happens, but there is a method to healing. The first thing is to call out what you said, which is the shame that sits there. So what are those shame shields that we have built? Are we those that, you know, repress and pull back? I will isolate in shame. I know that for a fact about myself, and I'm able to call it out. So therefore I don't isolate as much. So those that sit in spaces of blame, those who minimize the hurt. So instead of saying, you know, this hurt me, it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad, let's keep pushing, which happens a lot in Black community. And it is not a good space of self-care, and it's not a good space of self-compassion, because we will minimize our what has happened to us. And so because we minimize, we don't get a chance to really put it out there that this is really something that is a part of my psyche, it's a part of my makeup, and it can pass on to someone else. And then we see rage. That rage comes out. And it may come out in how we work. It may come out in that aggressive space of how we talk. It may even come out in how we approach people who have hurt us privately. It may come out in how we're sending things, it may even come out when I'm trying to get my pain out. It may come out in how we even approach someone in private settings. For some people, like for me, I don't like to be around people who have hurt me. And I can say that stuff out loud. Like, I don't need to do that. It used to let me confront this person, and I would go and be in front of that person, but I would literally be sitting in shame the whole time, trying to deny how I feel. So first, announcing those shame shields and announcing that there really is pain. The second part to that is, what does resilience look like in this case? So instead of sitting in spaces of blame and denying and minimizing and going to rage, what does it look like when I can call it out? What does it look like when I can wrestle? Dr. Brene Brown says that we should wrestle or we should rumble with this thing. And so what does it look like when I'm sitting in a space of wilderness, which is what she calls it, this pain, and I can sit in my rumble, call it out. And then when I come back, I don't have to keep building shields around it, but I can now start walking in resilience, and I can start walking in a healthy and holy space that's going to allow me to be myself. And now my scars are sacred for people to see and maybe can find healing, versus me bleeding and continue to stay wounded, announcing healing that really doesn't exist.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm just reminded that at the end of the day, with these family secrets, no matter what their name is that we put on that secret, at the end of the day, what it's going to ultimately cause for us is, you know, somatic symptoms, which causes certain things to take place with the body, you know, such as bulimia and anorexia and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully we have time to get to that. For the sake of time, I want to go ahead and mention for Dr. Butler, we're going to move on the mental illness portion of it, because I'm trying to push, because I know that our time is limited. Okay, I want to mention the fact that on the mental illness piece, you all remember, I mean, we've read the books, you know, we've seen the movies, we've read the stories about how, you know, something as a mental illness such as schizophrenia or bipolar, you know, those type of things, you know, any, you know, form of psychosis. Back in the day, years ago, these feelings of shame that for the family, they hide you away, and you actually looking sicker than you really were, because they had no way of really, you know, meeting the need of your illness. It caused feelings of shame. And it was so powerful, you know, for families that dealt with these type of mental illnesses, that they literally locked family members away permanently in institutions. And they call them sick in the head. Or what's the other word? Or she been touched, or he been touched. Those are the type of words that they would use. And you never seen or heard from that individual ever again. Ever again. Other family members were locked away in their relatives' rooms somewhere, or in a home somewhere, in isolation and secrecy away, away from other people. Y'all, that literally took place in the Black community. So, Dr. Butler, how important is it that we know about this stuff? How important is it that the family come clean on this stuff, because certain things are hereditary. And we need to know what's going on when we are feeling some kind of way or dealing with something, and then you go to the doctor and ask you, what is your history? And the family, the parents have told you, we ain't dealt with that. That don't run through our family.
Absolutely. I think as we mentioned earlier, and I think Margaret named, in order to call something out, you have to know it exists. And so right now, I believe there is a move for people to really understand what mental health is, so that they can understand the difference between mental health and mental illness, and how we are actively working to be well, even though there might be trauma or other biological reasons why we're why we need other support. I want to go back and say this: mental health is just as important as all other aspects of health. Physical health, financial health, our spiritual health, all those things are important. And so as we become a safer community to be able to have these conversations, people need to be able to know the history. And if they don't know the history, they need to be able to talk about not knowing the history, so that we can begin to understand where we are. I believe guilt and shame are two different things.
I do too.
Margaret named the difference. I'll name for us one more time. Guilt is I did. There was something in my own behavior, something that I contributed to, that I feel bad about. That's guilt. Guilt can be moved as we begin to understand our reasons. Guilt can be removed as we begin to understand forgiveness. Guilt can be moved as we begin to work on our own healing and come into relationship with those who we've had rupture with. Guilt can be moved. Shame is I am. And many of the reasons why people put folks away was the shame, feeling like I am defective. I am not enough. I am broken. And so as we begin to shift language, people can begin to find their own healing. There's also this piece about resiliency that I love so much. I'll say I love this understanding that resiliency is the ability to bounce back. That's what resilience is. But there is a myth too, that if you keep pulling on something for so long, eventually it will snap and it will break. And so we don't want to lean so much on, I'll get over it, I'll come back, because eventually weathering will occur and real harm can occur. The other myth is we, as Black folks, we are tired of always having to bounce back. At some point, we would like to just be treated well. At some point, we want to be treated, we want to live in safety. At some point, we want to be in trusting relationships. So as best as we can, we want to be transparent with where we are, where our health is, where our boundaries are, so that people can make meaningful and purposeful decisions about how they want to engage, especially as we're growing the next generation. Healing is a process. And so even in our own mental health journeys, as we are navigating symptoms of depression or symptoms of anxiety or even symptoms of severe and persistent mental illness, it's important that we understand that we're going to have moments that are up and down. There are moments where we're going to be doing extremely well and some moments where we're not. And it's perfectly okay to experience a full range of our humanity, as long as we have a safe community around us. See, we all have moments, but healing, especially while Black, is possible. It's important that we're having courageous conversations rooted in truth and transparency with people who have earned the right to trust. Coach Debb, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I think for me, it It's been an
This is,
experience
I'm so
I needed to
grateful.
know. Mhm.
I'm grateful for you to be a part of it. And before you go, please let everyone know how you can be reached on social media, and how you can be, contacted for any bookings or anything like that.
Absolutely. Well, see, I love being in community. So people who want to reach out to me can look at thewellforlife.org, or they can reach out via social media at Dr. LaDonna Butler on all social media channels. You want to email me directly, that's L Butler, Butler, at thewellforlife.org. I believe that healing happens in relationship, and I look forward to connecting to any of the callers and any of the listeners. Thank you.
Excellent. I want to congratulate you on your successful conference, Healing While Black. Please share with the listeners before you leave what your credentials are, please.
Thank you so much, Coach Debb. So I have a doctorate in counselor education and supervision. I'm a master certified addictions professional, a victim service practitioner. And so that's just the pieces of paper that says that I have done the academic study, but I've done the life work. And I'm doing the life work of healing so that I can adequately and supportively walk people through a journey.
Thank you once again, Dr. LaDonna Butler. I'm grateful that you are a part of the I'm Not Okay Why panel. And I will see you, God willing. We will talk again real soon.
Thank you.
Margaret, tell me, sis, do you believe that the mindset that the master programmed in us as a people, Blacks don't feel and animals don't feel? We are compared to animals. We don't feel. Do you believe that that is the perspective or the persona that we as a culture, as a people have taken on when it comes to dealing with ourselves and dealing with each other?
I think in some aspects. So that process that you're talking about is referred to as the seasoning process. Mm-hmm. And so it's to strip you of your dignity, to strip you of your humanity as you know it, and then to come back and to put you into place of a tamed buck is really what you read. You can easily go read that in the Willie Lynch letter.
Yeah.
If go get that, you can read it online. So in that tameness, it's also markings. For anyone who understands agriculture, dealing with animals, they all receive a marking after they have been tamed. And so where there's a tag in their ear, where there's a marking on their hoof, they have been tamed, and so therefore they receive the marking. For African Americans, we receive that gold tooth. However many gold teeth you had was the prize buck you were to become. And so in that, we still treat each other like that. Because that is now something that has been ingrained in us. And also when you season an animal, and when you take the wild out of an animal so that they won't buck, you also put them in a space of limited emotion. And so I always think about the blinders on a horse. And so you stop, they can only see how far they can go. When something becomes life-threatening, whether they perceive it to be life-threatening and we don't, it could be a mouse that may run in front of them or whatnot, they're going to respond the best way they can, which means they're going to buck. Doesn't matter who they hurt, doesn't matter who's in their way, but they're going to go to safety. So that's why I said in most cases, I can see where you're going, but we all have an amygdala response. For humans, you're going to respond in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawning response. We're all going to do that because we have trained ourselves, especially in the African American community, to have a frontal lobe response, or just to manage it with what we see and move it on. We don't process through our trauma. We don't process through that pain. We hold it. And that is why I said at the beginning of what I was saying is that if you hold it, your body starts to respond. The body keeps the score. And so if that is the case, scientists have proven that what we go from holding information to where our body begins to hold the information, you start to see your body break down. You start to see issues with your eyesight. You start to see issues with your blood pressure. You start to see issues with your heart. You start to see issues with your limbs, you start to see issues because your body can't take that stress. Going back to thinking about the seasoning process, we watched how some of our brothers and sisters, even in transport from that middle passage, stopping off in Haiti, stopping off in the Dominican Republic, where they were seasoned, they did not make the rest of that boat ride. They died in transit because it was too much pressure. And so you have bodies laying next to dead bodies. But what happens when you are laying next to something that's dead and you can't scream, feel, or heal? Then you become emotionless, which adds to the seasoning process. And so we have carried that. We see that a lot in our Black males. Like you talked about your father, he was the breadwinner. He was the man of the house. He was that man. He was strong. But his strength, we're putting that all in how his force showed up. But what happens when we allow that nurture part of our Black males to show up? That is strength too. But they lose that because you know what? I just got to work and make it happen because that's what's been ingrained in me. What happens with our mothers? And this is more so like in watching Tiger Moms and parts of our Asian community. So, you know, they have zero or limited emotion because you just got to do what you need to do to get it done. What happens if we say stop, pause, and see what that emotion or see what emotions are attached to this movement? Questions that I even ask in practice so that I can invite people to have emotion is the response that you're giving and the intensity that you are showing matching the situation that's going on? And so because we're going to have an amygdala response, that intensity might be really high. I might be bucking when really may need to pause. But because we're not in tune and we're not attuned with our emotions, then we don't know how to really do that. And in Black community, that's a strong invite right now because COVID brought up so much stuff that we had learned how to deal with. Like we learned how to just deal with being treated or mishandled while being Black. We learned that.
Wow, that's good.
COVID, because not everybody's going through this same thing. So now we're fighting to be seen. We knew what the fight was, but not everybody's fighting. So Black people became more repressed. And with that being said, we weren't able to move, we weren't able to do. And so if we could learn through those spaces of how to manage our emotions and invite ourselves to know emotion, then that is like another part of that step in moving beyond the shame shields into that space of resilience or that place of bounce back. And even with our children, teaching them that it's okay to have emotion now will literally add to the resiliency and the power of the resiliency versus too much pull and we end up snapping versus bouncing back.
Oh, wow, sis. Yes, and yes. And you touched on so many things. And what we're going to do is we're going to break down the motivations for secrecy in family. There's a whole lot. There's a long list that we won't, get to that I researched. And it's just a small list, such as rape and, women and sexual issues, adoption, alcoholism and drug addiction, job loss, and, extramarital affairs, homosexuality, gambling, to name a few. Also, criminal behavior, violations of incest taboo and suicide. Also, additional examples and many other factors that lead into lies and secrets. And for the sake of time, we're going to move forward and talk about the consequences. You understand? Because secrets lead to lies, sis. Secrets lead to lies, and secrets and lies can have serious consequences. Serious consequences. And that's really what I want to talk about, because as one of the, as the consequences to the family secrets and lack of transparency in our community. You see, in the real world, everything's perfect. It's like you don't talk about anything that is dark and ugly. It's like when you bring up a hint of anything in the family that's flawed, it's like a death threat. You get slapped, knocked around, looked at like you know, like you crazy or demonic. You know what I'm saying? It's like, don't you dare say that. Don't you dare speak of that. Who told you that? The fear, they put the fear of God in you to mention a hint of something going that's happened in the family. And that really puts a toll on you, because I believe you start battling with identity issues. You start battling with what's truth and what's lies. You don't know who you are. You can't relate to other people, you know, other stories, because you don't know your own. You don't know who you are, where you come from. So how do we deal? How do we deal, sis?
Dr. David Grand is the founder of the creator of what's called brain spotting, and it's a trauma method that is used to get to those middle parts of our brain that hold the trauma. I call it a trauma. I call it our black box, our trauma pocket. Like, we can pack so much stuff in there. But he also talks about the post-traumatic stress, not the disorder phase, but the post-trauma that we seem to not think about because we have now conditioned ourselves to perform. And so we have conditioned ourselves to perform in all of that post-traumatic space, not post-traumatic syndrome. Hear me out, y'all. Post-traumatic space. Example, our pastors have conditioned themselves to perform. I can get a scripture and give you a good sermon knowing that I'm in pain, because I have conditioned myself to perform. And so I can sweat it out, I can give it out, I can scream it out, but I'm still going to go to my office and isolate and be sad if I'm dealing with depression, anxiety, things that I can't mention because I'm not given permission to do so. And so how do we come to that? How do we heal from that? Is we start giving our community permission to heal. Start giving our community permission to talk about those secret spaces. The way I talk about it in my practice is I talk about a way of communication which is hot, honest, open, and transparent. Be honest about what's going on in your life. Sometimes you don't want to. Sometimes it may feel guilt behind it, but so it doesn't set up shame, you want to be honest about that. That's when we initially were talking about to you guys about finding that community that you feel safe with. That community could be a therapist. That community could be that one person that you know is not going to tell your business. That community could be a group of people, whatever that is, but don't let it be a community that's isolated in yourself. We need each other. And so humans are built for humans. We need human connection. God didn't even see it right for man to be alone. God didn't destroy the earth and leave Noah by himself, but the whole family went. God didn't even see it right for animals to be alone. So with that being said, we are not sitting in a space of bacteria. Like, I don't know any other entity besides the bacteria that can reproduce out of themselves.
Right.
And so we got that. And with that, it's definitely saying, okay, I can announce this and be honest and then be open about it. Sometimes our community is so judgmental that people are afraid to just be open. Like, this is happening to me. This is what has happened to me. This is still happening to me. But if you find that space of safety, be open. What you will feel is a physical release. Miss Debb said, Coach Debb said it so many times, a somatic response. You will find that physical response that you're having will begin to lift. And then you will feel how that thought, how that emotion is beginning to move out of you versus you reprocessing it over and over again. And you will find how to resource wellness and emotional wellness for yourself. And so you will find, like the question I asked in practice is your response to the event, is the intensity of it matching the event? And that way you can calm your body. The third one is transparency. This one is always a scary word, but I want people to look at what it's a very scary word, right? But you parent what you want to transfer to people. The two words in front of it are very important because I'm asking you to be honest and open. And now I'm asking you to parent what you need to transfer out for your own healing. Transparency does not mean I give you all of my business at one time. That
Right.
isn't healthy. I can't find it even in the Bible where somebody gave all their business at one time. I can't find it.
Right.
They had trusted spaces where they were able to talk through what they needed to talk through. They didn't put all their business out there at one time. They parented what they needed to transfer in an honest and open way. And so I give it to people like this. We all have windows, and in those windows they have frames, and you get to decide how big your frame is, and people can only see as far as the frame will let them see. And so when you have a glass house, you still have those little frames in that glass house. When we put it together, you still can't see past that. There's still some blockages. And so you have to be mindful about what transparency looks like for you, and what space you're being transparent in, but yet still be honest and open. And so that is healthy. And that is a start for our community to start communicating without feeling like they're on a chopping block.
Right.
Without feeling like they're getting judged, and without feeling like they're going to lose their mind because now they have to sit in such a shameful place, versus allowing guilt to put them into a healthy place that is holy and refreshing so that they can provide healing out of community for themselves. I always use the Lazarus story for this. Jesus, we always preach Lazarus. We always get excited about the resurrection part, but we always neglect to see that walk that it took Jesus to get to the opening of that tomb. Lazarus has been dead 4 days. He was thinking. That's what the text says. Jesus is working. Jesus is late. Jesus gets off this boat, and he's not greeted with people saying, "Hey, are you okay?" With people saying, "Hey, you messed up." Black community, let's reverse that when we having our Lazarus moment, because our brothers and sisters are laying there. They're already down. They're already wrapped up in their death clothes. There's no need to continue before getting them up to continue to murder them. And in Jesus's case, he couldn't even get to the body before getting accused of not being available. So he couldn't be honest and open and transparent. People wouldn't let him. And so we find in that text as he walks, the people trusted didn't even listen to him. They said, "What are you going to do?" They didn't say, "Do you need anything?" Here are the questions I'm asking. What can I do to assist you? How are you feeling? What has happened to you? Not, "It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. What you going to do about it?" These questions that I'm asking, reverse of that, are going to help our community heal. What has happened to you? How can I help you? Do you need anything from us? And once we see that, then we can watch instead of having a moment of weeping, because Jesus literally took on all the pressures of that situation. We could find that weep moment could be a release versus a cry out and pressure. Jesus's response was beautiful that Lazarus got up, but Jesus didn't finish the job. We don't like preaching that part of the text. He told the community to finish it because it was so much pressure in my belief. Jesus couldn't sit there for that unwrapping, because we didn't give him time to walk into a space we're already hurting. And so for those of us that are sitting in those spaces where we are walking to those things in our lives that may need to be resurrected, let's ask them what they need. When they get off that boat, if we see them, what do you need in order for me to walk you to this place to bring that stuff back? What do you need? And if we can start the conversation there versus starting it with throwing shame, then we might see a turn in our community for honesty and openness, because we respected the place of transparency.
You know, I believe that, by the way, that was real good. I believe that we are such a hurting people to where we lack, the compassion for one another, because we lack the compassion for ourselves. We see ourselves, as that, that broken place where we can't wish a brother well or a sister well or help them up, from a low place because of self. It's like you're looking at a reflection of yourself, and you don't see no good in them because you don't see no good in you. And I believe that there's a long list of reasons why as a community, we feel this way, but I do believe family secrets, you know, and having consequences beyond what the secret keepers ever imagined. You know what I'm saying? The very one that is keeping the secret, because I believe that thing is so strong, and that thing is so heavy, and it goes so deep. It's kind of hard to live with yourself because you're living a pretense life. You're not really living who you really are or could be. You know, it's like you're into reality TV and different things where it's always about the pretense of another person's life because you don't like your life. You know, I believe that we battle with the secrets, you know, in such a way to where it affects us even having children. You know, it's just so many things that tend to happen because of that the root of darkness, that secret that we're keeping. And I just think it's a form of abuse when the overseer, the parent, the one of influence is the person that could set the child free, you know, and give them a chance to live a life they never lived by getting, you know, relieving themselves of something that have bound them all of their lives. Because there's nothing good that can come from you keeping those secrets. Look at our community. I believe that it's the root, the damning secrets has blossomed has created such a black cloud to when we look at each other, we don't see nothing good. It's just ugly. It's like, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you. And it's because you don't like yourself.
Right.
I believe that these damning things, sweetie, being, you know, raped and just, you know, being abused and all these different ugly things that has happened. You don't trust therapists. And you know how we used to, now we're getting better when it comes to, you know, accepting that we need to talk to somebody. But girl, that used to be like you done lost your beloved mind. If you think it was like, no, you calling me crazy. I ain't crazy. You know, it's like you automatically got offended when someone suggested that you need to see somebody.
But it was stated tonight, you know, there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental illness has a diagnostic code. That's how I like to explain it to my community. You gonna have a code out of the diagnostic book, just like you would have a code if you had heart disease, just like you have a code if you had something going on. There is a code that's going to go next to your medical chart to say that you have a mental illness. Mental health or emotional wellness is the responsibility of everybody.
Yes, it is.
All have brains. And so we have to keep that up. And so it comes down to your physical health. It's the same thing. Or physical illness. My physical health, everybody has a heart, everybody has a pair of lungs, everybody got ribs, everybody got bones, everybody got all of that, right? We want to make sure that we exercise. We want to make sure that we put ourselves in a space of good health so that we can avoid the illness. It comes down to emotions. We want to make sure that we exercise our emotions. That means you got to get to know them. How do they work? What do they show up? How do they show up? What do I do in response to when they show up and they're unmanaged so that I can maintain the health of my emotions so that I don't go into a space of illness? And this has not been explained to our community because anytime you hear emotion or mental, you think I'm crazy. That's not what I'm inviting people to hear tonight. That's not even the invite that has been given. Secrets start to affect our wellness. They affect our emotional wellness that leads to illness. So it's going to lead to some level of depression or anxiety because you're overthinking it, you're overdoing it, you're overprocessing it, and you're processing it in. It's almost as gross as I can get tonight, Coach Debb. It's like a dog going back to its vomit every time we overprocess. we are starting to enjoy the over process, and we start to build walls and those shame shields so that you don't have to see me over process is what you think. But people can see it because you're beginning to lose your mind in the over process. It's becoming overworked. It's like overworking your heart. You begin to lose the stamina in your heartbeat because you're overworking your heart based upon something being clogged. And then so you want to unclog, or you want to process out, and then you want to find those resources in so that we don't get stuck in those spaces in our community, so that we don't hold on to that. And if we could find a way to define it, find a way to put it out there that's understandable and that we can see, then our community, I really believe our community can begin to heal from those secrets buried. And if we have generational curses, for my church people that's listening, then it's got to be generational healing, because you gotta have polar opposites. I truthfully believe that. So if I have curses, I've got to have spaces of healing, which means I need to seek those out. Yeah. And if I can seek those out, then I start to reverse those things that I'm taking on as if this is just how life is going to be. I mean, I've watched people over and over again reverse what health looked like for them, because they realize this is what caused this. Think about those in your family who used to smoke. When the kids realized, oh, smoking led to the cancer, guess what the kids didn't do? They didn't smoke. Guess what? They had cancer. And so the same thing, if I don't overprocess, overwork my mind, then what happens for those who don't have an organic mental health issue, like before it's created? Then we can stop that and start to build communities of health that are way beyond anything that we can think of. But that really is going to take an evaluation of looking at where we are and how much are we willing to work to change our language from blame to a place of healing and asking each other, what do we need, and doing it in an open and honest space so that we don't bring harm or shame to one another.
That is so true. And, you know, as we begin to close, I want to share that I have found, and I was able to look at this thing, you know, real close, because I believe it's in our families when it comes to maintaining family secrets. It literally provides an opportunity for some family members to form a bond between one another, you know, between them that know it, you know, between the ones that know the secret, you know what I'm saying? And for others that don't know the secret or part of the secret, they feel excluded. They feel like an outsider because it's something they recognize that is between a certain group of the family. And then there are others that it appears that, you know, that they're outsiders, and they may even say things like, you know, y'all bougie, or y'all think y'all better than we are, because they know a dark secret amongst them that's making them feel like that they're less than, versus the ones that don't know the secret and they're just living their best lives. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because they are not a part of that secret. And you know what? That type of thing can cause distrust and anger, because when you are a part of a dark secret and you know that it's lies and you know all that fear and shame surrounding that, can you imagine how that affects relationships? How that affects on every level relationships, from friendships to you know, on the job. I'm talking about relationships, period. Even getting in the church, if you're not delivered from that place and you own stuff, you're gonna have that same thing going on dealing with your sister and brother in the Lord and your pastor and all these other people, you know, that you deal with in the church. And to add to that, I believe it causes children to have learning problems. Well, it's like so much. It's so much, sis.
And I know we have to come to a close, but just to even
it's so good though.
Yeah, just to enter that door a little bit, you know, working with families who keep secrets, just watching them, especially if they have children that have gaps. The older kids literally are holding the weight for the younger. Exactly. The parents don't even realize it, because when we hold that, or when we sit in those secret spaces, then we don't pay attention to that which we're responsible for, because we're so engulfed in our pain. Girl. And it's not throwing shame out there to anybody. I'm so engulfed in my pain and my hurt, I'm not paying attention to who's really taking care. And so I watch families all the time. They don't realize like the oldest child or whatever child is the empathic child is sitting here taking on all the pain, like
all the pain. Oh
and
my God.
and they come in wanting to fix everything, because if I can stop everybody from fighting, maybe they can see how hurt I am. And that logic isn't off for a child. Like, you can see me if I can stop you. But eventually the child stops fighting. So this is when you pay attention to your child becoming quiet. They begin to fade away. They begin to not talk. They begin to enjoy electronics more so than they begin to enjoy conversation with you. They don't want to be around because you haven't noticed me. And so I'm going to stop fighting to be noticed because we're so stuck. So when we're sitting in our own negative thoughts, private logic, like, well, we don't think we're good enough, we start to pass that on, because the assumption is for our children, you don't think I'm good enough. That's not really what parents, in my belief, think. It's just they got their own mess and they don't really know how to do anything but to tell their child, don't do what I say, don't do what I do what I say do. They think that's helpful, but really explain to your child why you're doing what you're doing. So both of you can walk in a space of healing, because you may realize in your explanation on their level that I don't even have to do that. I do not have to keep walking in this way, and I can walk in a space of freedom so that I don't continue to hurt myself and pass that same logic on to my child.
Ooh. You know, we could do a part 2 on this. Listen, oh my goodness. We could do a part 2 on this, but we're really gonna have to leave it right there. You know, it's just so much to this topic. And you know, I knew we couldn't get all the good in an hour, but guess what? We have started the conversation. We have uncovered some things that's making our community squirm a little bit. You understand? It's like when you bring things to the table, it causes people to think. It causes people to make a decision about some things that they've been dealing with. It's some shakiness that's happening right now, and that's what I'm Not Okay Why is about. We want to stir the conversation. We want to, be the very resource to our community to get up and start moving, and making some things happen, because complaining about, why everybody else is getting theirs and you're not, and why it appears as though you never will win, we're done with that. We are people that love one another, and we all will win. We all must win. And sometimes it requires us to face both bold truths. Sometimes we have to bring troubling subjects to the table, because that's what our family consists of a whole bunch of stuff that makes us uncomfortable. But we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. Margaret, I always address you as Dr. Margaret. You're not too far away from getting that doctorate. You are a person you're just embodies so much knowledge and so much wisdom, and you got a lot of certificates to your name. And I know that you're not one that care about all the credentials and all that kind of stuff, because you have a desire to love, to heal, and see people win. But I do want you to share with the listeners, how they can reach you, because you have a clinic in Smyrna, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And just tell them a little bit about you before we prepare to close.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Georgia, and my practice is located in the greater Atlanta area in Smyrna, Georgia. I also recently am finishing up a half a unit, because I recently told you I got sick. I got a half a unit to add to the unit I already had in pastoral clinical care as a clinically trained chaplain. And so I look at care for emotions from the duality space of the spiritual and from the physical, emotional, and social. So I don't try to leave out the spiritual component, because it's really important on how we see ourselves. So my practice is MLC Consulting, And I also have a nonprofit called Mending Life Empowerment Group. And so both of those spaces are focused on meeting people where they are in the space at the intersection of spirituality and emotional wellness. So you can find me on Facebook at Margaret L. Conley, LCSW MDiv. You can find me on Instagram at mending_life_concepts. Please reach out to me. You can also email me at margaret@mlcconsultingllc.com. You can visit my website, www.consultingllc.com, and you can see what's available. So hopefully we're looking to add some things. I recently just wrote a chapter in a fantastic book called Ministry That Impacts with Lakeisha Wilcox. I want to say, if I said it wrong, you can find it, you can see it online. And she was gracious enough to allow me to be in her work, where I offer to the church a space for us to visit the attic, so we are not sitting in spaces of wellness at our wells. And so it's an offering to assess what we need in our church spaces to ensure that we have an emotional well palette that's offered to Black churches and Black community as we lead out in those spiritual spaces. So thank you, Coach Debb. It's always an honor to be on. I try not to be too raw, even though I know it's raw.
Yes, we are raw and uncut, remember? Remember? They expect that. They expect that.
But I do believe that it is important for us to be honest, open, and transparent in our communication. And that for me has been the start and the continuation of my healing over the last 15 years of my life. And I have zero shame about anything that I have done, because I sit in that space and I allow myself to heal in a healthy way and with a healthy community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to I'm Not Okay Why, and I'm Coach Debb on Really Real Radio. You know, you can find us each and every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. coming at you with raw, uncut conversation about the things that we're not okay with in our community. Not to say that other communities don't matter, but we're trying to fix us. We're trying to help us, and we're trying to do it in love, but tough love. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you real soon. Remember to love yourself, love everybody, and be an example.